Burma doesn't really have an elected government, and over the past 5 decades. So that's why many Burmese people don't believe that the change which happened in 2011 is not really change for the people, a majority of the people in this country. In 2008, the current constitution was drafted by the military hand-picked delegates, and I will just pick up the two controversial articles from the constitution. One of them is 25% of the military appointees are appointed by the commander-in-chief. That means the military by constitution automatically gets 25% in the parliament without contesting any election. Another good example is 59F, which bars people like Aung San Suu Kyi from being president. I think they were trying their best. Of course, they were never in government ever before, so we don't know what kind of capacity they have at the moment. But I've seen the relatively genuine will in the leadership of the NLD. That means they have a more liberal people and more democratic people in the party. And compared to the ruling party, Union Solidarity and Development Party, is comprised of former military generals and high-ranking officials, most of whom were corrupt. And the previous government also violated the human rights violations and exploited the natural resources, and they had waged war with the ethnic people over the past 5 decades. So I think people are really, really tired of this kind of situation, and they just want to see a new face in the government. I would say the ethnic issue, another word, peace process, is one of the most crucial issues. As far as I know, the peace process is on top of the NLD's list. They didn't introduce a democracy to the country. For example, in 1988, the country had a very big and nationwide political uprising, in which I also took part in as a high school student. And then thousands of people were killed, and then the students, millions of people took to the streets and to demand the democracy at the time, and they toppled the authoritarian government at the time. So actually the democracy revolution or uprising started in 1988, and which was crashed down by the military. And most of their members are still in this government and the ruling party. So it is really wrong and for them to say that they introduced a democracy in this country. That's totally wrong. Of course, and the religions and religious people like the Buddhist monks, maybe other religious teachers, are being used by the politicians for their own political benefit. I think quite often, but this time it's quite obvious. I couldn't say that that is the policy of the party, and to use a religion or mabada to get more votes is quite hard to say. But we definitely know that some of the individual members of the USDP, and probably even some elements in the government, in the military, really get involved in this kind of the strategy or attempts, and to let the Mabada do whatever they want. That's why even though the number of the Mabadas are not that high, they are quite powerful because people, even media and some civil societies, think that they are untouchable because they are supported by those in power. That's why they are untouchable. But I think these days, after 1 year or 2 years later, I think people have learned a lot. People have known that the stand of the Buddha is quite conservative, which is quite harmful for democracy. So far, we haven't faced very restrictive obstacles, restrictions from the Ministry of Information and from the government. But overall speaking, since we came back here in 2012, we have faced a lot of restrictions and the problems as well, not only from the authorities, from the government, but also from the nationalist groups like Mabada. So in terms of the press freedom, we don't really have a 100% liberty of freedom here, but so far we can still write many issues we want. But at the same time, there are a lot of issues we cannot cover, like corruption, like constitutional change, and the military issue, and religious problems as well. Our constitution guarantees that everyone has a freedom of expression, but the problem is the government doesn't really protect or honor that guarantee from the constitution. That's why over the past year, 11 journalists were sentenced and put in jail. And then one freelance journalist was killed in the field. And so in that situation, we Burmese journalists know there is a invisible line somewhere and you cannot see, but we can feel it. And as a Burmese journalist, so if you cross that invisible line, you will be put in jail. One of the examples is, for example, Constitution. The laws said that anyone cannot criticize the Constitution. So again, as I said earlier, the Constitution guarantees 25% of the military appointees. That's the way we can use the phrase from the Constitution. But actually, if we want to use more descriptive word explaining about that, the 25% of the military appointees, actually, they get automatically. And then if we criticize the Constitution, we might be sued by the government and put in jail. So there are still a lot of issues. But another important point to access the press freedom is the access to the information. We don't really have access to the information in the government. Of course, we get more interviews with the military officials or high-ranking officials and ministers and ever than before. But the question is whether they are really providing the real information, important information, valuable information for us, and to provide back to our readers. That's the question. We just get only quote sometimes, and we just get only one word. They say no comment. Then we get a story for that day. I mean, journalists are quite superficial sometimes, to be honest. And then, every journalist has to work with their deadline. And then before their deadline, they need one quote from the authority side. And then if they get even no comment, and they can finish their story. But when you read it, it's hollow information in the story. That's the problem of the press freedom in our country.